Us now is the Democratic Congressman Adam Smith of Washington, who represents Seattle. He's co-sponsor of the End Hedge Fund Control of American Houses bill. Congressman, good to see you. Thank you for being with us this evening.
Great to see you. Thanks for the chance.
Okay, so this is this has been going on, I think, roughly, I think I first started hearing about this after the 2008 recession, where, big moneyed interests from Wall Street, venture capital funds, places like that, understood that these houses are cheap and are going to go up, because that's kind of how it works in America. And so they would go in. They don't have to apply for mortgages. They don't have, so that alone takes a whole bunch of people out of the market, right? If you can go in with a cash offer, even at the same amount of money. But what it does over time is it drives up the price of houses.
Absolutely. You have, more demand. First of all, supply is too low. We have to build more houses.
Yes, we know that.
So you've got a supply problem, but now you've got a demand problem, because you've got these multi-billion-dollar hedge funds that are coming in and competing with average people. I think you described the situation quite well. The one thing that I like to add to it is, if you're a working class person in a blue-collar family, my father was a baggage handler at United Airlines. I grew up in SeaTac. When you're looking at what's going to give you an economic advantage, you really have two things. You've got the wages you're paid to do your job, and typically you've got your house.
Correct.
Because real estate has gone up in value. So if you're a working class person, you buy a house and it goes up in value. Well, Wall Street, that has spent the last 50 years pushing all of the profits to investors and shareholders and away from workers, is now going after sort of the last bastion of wealth creation that is available to your average working class family, which is being able to buy a house and see it go up in value. Now, Wall Street's coming in and buying it and forcing you to rent so that they get the increased value and you don't. It is bad for equality and bad for our economy, and they ought to be barred from doing it.
And let's just, when you look at the stools of prosperity, you mentioned jobs, right? Wages are going up in this country, but as we've seen with the union stuff this year, wages for CEOs and executives go up many, many times what they do for regular owners. The stock market's doing well right now, but most of the holders of stock are still in the richest 10% of this country. Half of all Americans hold stock. And your third leg of prosperity is your home, that you can either sell in your old age or you pass on to your kids. There's just an unfairness to the whole thing, that the normal market forces would be, how many people need a house in Seattle? How many houses do we have? How many houses do we need to have? But if you've got this extra force coming in and saying every house in Seattle that's available will be able to pick up, because we don't have to bid against regular people because we're hedge funds or private equity funds, you're creating an unfair market.
Look, I mean, we've got a lot of problems in this country, but I always say one of the biggest is economic inequality. And what is fueling so much anger and resentment on a large range of issues is all the people who are struggling to get by. They're struggling economically to pay their bills, to afford a place to live, to afford to send their kids to college. All of those prices have gone up, while the wages for working people have stayed relatively stagnant over the course of the last 50 years. The wealth that has been created has been concentrated in the hands of shareholders and investors, like I said, and it's making it tougher for people to be able to make ends meet. I mean, as I said, grew up in a blue-collar family, but we could afford a house. I could afford college. I worked, from the time I was 11 years old. It wasn't easy, but it was possible. Increasingly, all that feels out of reach for your average working family. And now to have Wall Street taking away the wealth creation from the increase in housing values, that's just one more brick in that rather heavy load.
Right. They've got other places they can make their money. Maybe they don't need to make it off the back of hardworking Americans. Adam Smith, good to see you as always. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thanks for the chance.
Congressman Adam Smith. That's tonight's last word is next.